Okay, so welcome everybody to our first Spaces or live or whatever this is. Um, it's exciting. We're going to get to talk to Zoom, who has over 20 years IT experience in security and incident response. He's now full-time Web3 worked on over 20 mints and never had one go wrong, which is impressive and amazing. um, he has an MBA with a major in marketing. And he's helped countless corgis with tech issues, security issues, and he's always available for questions in the chat. If you need him, tag him. Such an asset that we have him. And I will turn the stage over to him to talk about contracts and answer questions that anybody has.
Awesome. Thanks, Ali. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Saturday morning. Welcome to the future. It's 5 to 7 Saturday morning here in Sydney. What we're going to do today is have a look at some information regarding contracts and some of the things you can look for to help you understand if the contract is doing the right thing, and also just how to interact, how to get some information from the contracts to help you for mints that are coming up, or if you're trying to mint. And then what we'll do is we'll look for something that might be minting right now that's a freebie, and I'll go and do a free mint and demonstrate that. Questions, pop them in the chat, and I will try and keep an eye on that and get to them as we go. But what I'll probably do is just run through my basic outline, and then I'll go back and check through the questions, and if there's anything that I haven't particularly covered, we will cover that, and then I'll hand back to Ali and hopefully Corbel to go through the rest. So basically, on the blockchain, it is the contracts that manage or control everything with regard to NFTs. But I also manage anything with regard to any of the DeFi apps or dApps and things like that as well. So it's really important that you do have a little bit of an understanding on how the contract works. Generally, what will happen is you can interact directly with the contract through Etherscan, or one of the projects, for example, will create a dApp, so a decentralized application, which allows you to point and click through a website to basically carry out the functions of the contract. Being able to interact directly with the contract is much more secure than it is going through the dApp. Because with the dApp, you can't actually see what it's doing. So most scams, or most draining scams, aren't actually contracts that will drain your NFTs or your funds, or your Ethereum, your coins. They're actually scams within the dApp, and that's because the scammers can hide the code that they're using in that dApp. So could just everyone just make sure that you're on mute, please. Just getting a bit of feedback. So contracts can all be seen on Etherscan. So you can get to Etherscan. It's Etherscan.io, and it brings up this really cool page, which is pretty boring. If you know the contract number, you can go directly to the contract here on Etherscan. If you don't know the contract number and you want to look at a contract, you can look for it on OpenSea. So if we kick OpenSea off, and we'll just pull up one of the collections here. Actually, I'll pull up a collection I did a mint for a month or two back, because I know what that contract is doing. So this is a governance token contract I did for a project. So if you want to look at the contract, you get up the main page of the project, and you click on this little Etherscan logo over here, and that will take you directly to the contract in Etherscan. So if we click on this, it brings up this page, and there's a little bit of information you can see straight away. You can see the balance they have in their account, which is 0.35 Ether at this stage, and how that converts to US dollars at the current Ethereum price. And then down here, we have some information about, in default, the transactions that are on the contract. And you can see here, there's some transfers and there's some mints, and then some set approval for alls. And so we'll go through each of those things as we're talking. But in the first instance, I just want to show you what you need to look for. So if you click across here on the tab, and you can see it's contract. And something that's very important to look out for is this green tick. This green tick means that the contract has been verified on the blockchain. And by verified, that means that the code has now been made readable by a human. If we click on this, so basically if you go to, let me just go back a second. If you go to look at a contract and the contract isn't verified, 99% that it's a scam, 1% that it's just a bad dev. Okay, so most times if the contract isn't verified, it's going to be a scam. So if we click on contract, you can see here there's 3 tabs. There's code, there's read contract, which allows us to look at the read functions, and then there's write contract, which allows us to look at the write functions. So let's just have a look at the read functions first. In here, you can read any function from a contract for no gas. So there's no gas cost to read any of these functions. So some of the things you might look for when a mint is coming up, or if you're getting ready for a mint, is things like the cost. So we can click on that. And this will usually display the cost in number of way, which is an 18-digit number derivative of Ethereum. That's pretty hard to understand what it says, but if you click on that, it will bring up a new window, and you can go down here and you can see what way accounts to based on the different types of derivatives of Ethereum. So if you look for Ether, this one is 0.025. So this 25 and all those zeros, those 16 zeros, is 0.025 Ether. Some other things you might want to look for, maximum mint amount per transaction. These guys will let you mint 50. The maximum supply is 7,777. Whether the contract is paused or not. So paused is false. So this is what we call a bool in development. So it's either true or false. So if the contract was paused, it would say true there. Because the contract is open, it says false. Some other information, you can look if it's been revealed, which is true. If you already own a token, you can look at your token URI. So if you have token number 33, for example, you could type that in, and that will give you the metadata for that token. You can then copy that into a Google or into your browser, and it will show you what it is. You can look at total supply at the moment, 563. And that's just some of the stuff you can look for on Read, which is free. You can also do write contract, which we'll take a bit more of an in-depth look at in a moment. But in this case, most times if you're interacting with a contract, you'll be able to mint. So this gives you the option to mint, and it'll give you the option to set approval for all. So if you want to allow someone or a marketplace to access your NFTs to transfer. And then there's safe transfer. So there's 2 safe transfers. There's the one which most people use, which is you type in your from address. So the address that owns the NFT, the address that it's being sent to, and the token ID, and press write and pay a small gas fee, and it will transfer that token. So this function is what X2Y2 and OpenSea use when you press or when you click the transfer NFT or transfer NFTs to another user. This second safe transfer from is for a little bit higher level of security where you can then access or input some extra data. But most people will not use that, so we won't worry about that one. Set approval for all works very similar. You type in the address of, so the, for example, the Seaport contract, and you press true and do right, and it will allow then that contract to transfer or move your NFTs. The rest of the functions in here are all what the dev uses to make changes to the basic setup of the contract. So if we have a look at the code, you'll see contracts, data in contracts will be set up two ways. There is what we call flat, which I'll show you in a second, and then what we call JSON input. So the JSON input breaks every contract that is a subcontract of the main contract into a different file, which makes it, from a development point and a reading point, much easier to understand. So how this works is this is the contract for the NFT. And in this, I'm calling these extra contracts. So the main first contract I call is ERC721A, which is now the default standard for NFTs. And what it does is it calls some extra contracts, queryable.sol and 721a.sol. But I also call these other ones, which is ownable, cryptography Merkle proof, because there was a whitelist. So we want to call Merkle proof so we can make the whitelist work. Reentrancy guard we call to stop looping in the contract, which is, you would have seen, I think Amoebits or someone like that had loops in their contract where it just allowed people to continue to mint. And then this new one, default operator filter. This is the contract that allows only sales on OpenSea and X2Y2 at this point, or only sales on marketplaces that have been approved. If you don't have this default operator filter, you can sell your NFTs on any site, but OpenSea will not pay you any of your royalties. So you can understand why projects have been going down this route, because they really need to, most projects need the royalties to help them fund their project as they go along. So we'll have a bit of a look into this Hustlebuds contract here. At the top here is just some errors. You don't really need to worry about that. The important stuff to look for is the information that's in the constructor and these initial strings that are being entered in. So you can see here, we have strings for prefix for the URI, suffix, metadata, cost, max supply, max min amount per transaction. So how I do it is I set these in the constructor, which allows a little bit more flexibility than doing it directly into the contract. If we have a look, way down the bottom here and decode this last constructor arguments, you can see where the information is set in the constructor: max supply, max mint amount, for example, hidden URI. If we go back up the top, and let's just have a look at a couple of stuff. Now, there's a lot of things in here, but there's not a lot of things that you really need to be aware of. The main one you want to understand is around minting, and what you should look for in a mint, or when a mint happens. You can see here, just as we've come down, there's a mint function. So we're minting in the constructor, we're minting, and we're sending NFTs to an address. So the team here had 50 NFTs go to this address, and they had 30 NFTs go to this address. Okay, so that took place as I lodged the contract. So it happened in the constructor. So there was no team mint needed directly on the contract, because we took care of that as we lodged the contract. So a couple of things we're going to look for. We'll have modifiers for the mint. So what this basically does is it checks that certain conditions are met to make sure the mint can go correctly. So in this case, we're checking information around the data. So we're looking at the mint amount needs to be greater than 0. So no one can mint 0 NFTs. We're also in this next function here, we're looking at the mint amount has to be, if the mint amount is greater than the max mint amount per transaction. So in the initial lodgement was 10 in the first case, and now it's 50. So if someone tries to mint 51, it won't do it. It'll revert back with exceeds maximum per transaction. Now 51's a bit excessive. I don't know why they wanted to do that, but I just do what they say. Normally that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And the last one here is this is how we sell if it's sold out. If the total supply plus the mint amount is greater than the maximum supply, it will revert back with an error that it is sold out. Okay, so the next thing we start to check is we're checking the mint price. Okay, so we're asking it to check the message value, which is the information that's being sent. If the message value is less than the cost, which it pulls from up here, which we set in the constructor, which is 0.025. If it pulls that 0.025 and it times it by the mint amount, say it's 1. So if the amount of ETH being sent is less than 0.025, it will revert and say that there's not enough ETH. Okay, so there's some of the functions, how it tests to see if you're allowed to mint. So this next part is the whitelist minting function. We'll just leave that for now. We'll look at the standard minting function and some of the things you need to look for to make sure that your contract is not a drainer. Because although I did say before that most of the draining happens in dApps, before people got really smart, they used to do it in the contract. And it would just go ahead and say, rather than have a function for mint, it would have a function for, say, send ETH. And so basically what you'd do is you'd click on it and all you're doing is sending ETH to that address. You're not getting anything back in return from a mint, like an NFT. So if we look at the public mint function here, the function is mint. And if we just have a look at the right contract, if we look at mint, it asks us for a payable amount in Ether and it asks us for a mint amount. So the payable amount is obviously the cost and the mint amount is how many we want to buy. So if we go back here, we can see that the function codes that out for us, okay? So as we process this function, it'll say function is mint and it's looking for a mint amount, which is this number here. It's saying that it's payable, which means that the contract can accept Ethereum. It's doing the mint check, so it's looking at that mint check we just had just up here, wherever it is. There it is in here. These two, it's looking for mint check, and then it's going to look for mint price check. So it does mint check and it checks that the mint amount is valid. It does a mint price check and it checks that the price is valid. And then it checks to see if the public sale is paused. And if it's not paused, it allows you to mint, which is mint. And then message sender, which is your address. So it knows who to send it to. So the address asking it to mint is coming from you. And then the mint amount, which is the number of NFTs that you want. And once you process that, if there's NFTs available, it passes the check functions, it will send it to you. So one of the things to look for in contracts is look for the public minting function, which will obviously most times will be called mint, okay? and make sure that the functions are something like message sender and mint amount. They're not anything like send ETH or anything like that. That's probably the basic way of checking that the contract is okay and is not a drainer. So I'm just going to quickly check messages to see if there's any questions so far, and I'll quickly have a look at those. So hopefully it's all making sense so far. Okay. All right. So there's a question here for how to use the contract on ETH for sending NFTs. I touched on that before, but I'll actually do an example of that. That's from Howling Husky. I'll do an example of that in a little while. So let's just go back to our contract. Okay, so if we're looking at the contract, again, the public minting function is the one that's the most important. This one here, I'm going to talk about Merkle proof for just a moment. Someone sent a question about that the other day. I think it was Smitty, I think. Yeah, Smitty sent a question about Merkle proof the other day. There's 2 or 3 ways, or actually there's 3 ways, but one of them's just ridiculous. There's 3 ways that a project can manage who is allowed to mint through the process. And that process obviously is called whitelist or allow list. There's Merkle proof, which is by far the best way to do it. It's the cheapest on gas. It's the least expensive for customers. And it's, I think, is the easiest to use from a dev point of view. But what you will find that there's a bit of a caveat on that. It's the easiest to use if the devs really have experience. A lot of devs who just go and copy paste contracts and try and just change a few things, they don't understand the technology behind it, the hashing technology. So it makes it a little bit difficult. So they use either something called EDCA, and that will basically looks up a list, provides a string, and you enter that string into the minting section. If we have a look at this one, if you wanted to do a whitelist mint, which is down the bottom here somewhere, you do the same as the top, your payable amount in Ether, the same as the top, same as the normal mint, the mint amount, so how many you're going to mint, but then you need to put in your Merkle proof. What the Merkle proof is a cryptographic hash of where your address sits within the list of addresses that have been submitted for the whitelist. Okay. So when there's a whitelist mint, let's say there's 10,000 addresses in the whitelist, that address or those addresses are all bundled together and uploaded into the DApp. But before we do that, what we do is we run a cryptographic algorithm over the top of them, which creates what's called the Merkle tree. And what the Merkle tree does is it, I guess in the easiest terms, it issues a hash or creates a hash for each, and a hash is a string of codes, a string of digits and letters, sorry, that creates a hash for each address based on the address that's above it in the list and the address that is below it in the list. So for you to be able to hack Merkle proof, you would need to know what the address above it is and what the address below it is. And then you would need to go and run the hash function to create the Merkle tree root, which is also, you can read in the contract. So we create the Merkle tree root from all the lists and from all the addresses in your list. And this creates a hash. And that's then the basis that the DApp uses to make sure that or the contract uses with the DApp to make sure that you're allowed to mint. It takes the Merkle tree root and it takes your hash and it puts them together and it makes sure that it's valid. And if it's valid, it allows you to mint. So I do this in all my contracts, but a lot of devs won't do it. But I provide a portal to allow people to get their Merkle tree, so their Merkle hash or the data that they need to mint, their signature, and so they can type it into this section here or copy it in their Merkle proof, and they'll be allowed to mint directly from the contract. A lot of devs don't do that because it's not very easy, and you need a whole new page on your DApp and stuff like that. So it causes them some grief. So it doesn't really happen. One of the other things I just wanted to show you was, when it comes to contracts, was what a contract looks like if it's a flat contract. So you can see here, this is a JSON contract, right? So I've broken up all the different contracts into separate groups so they're easier to read. Usually what happens with new devs or devs that don't really understand how to put things together is they will create what they call a flat contract because it's easier to approve. So what we can do, and this is something handy to think about, is if you go into Etherscan and you go up the top here to blockchain, scroll down or go down to verified contracts and click that. That will show you a list of all the contracts that have been lodged going back in time from now. So if you are looking for a contract and you're waiting for it to come up and you want to check it out before the launch, you can scan verified contracts and it will show you every single contract that gets verified. So if we have a look through here, we can look at a contract that doesn't have dead kids. This looks like an NFT. We'll look at this one, right? So you can see here, this one's a JSON contract, so it's been split up. So devs know what they're doing. And dead kids, this is I would guess that this is someone who doesn't quite understand everything and is just kind of battling along. So we've got some issues here straight away. I want to show you something really quick. See this pragma solidity here, 0.8.0. We're currently up to 0.8.13. So number one, they've just you can tell straight away this contract has been copied from someone else from months ago. So you'd start to worry about this one, to be quite honest. But you'll notice there's only the one file. There's only the one file. Everything is dumped into a single file. So the information you want to look for is going to be really hard to find because you've got to scroll through all the base contract stuff and then look for the bits you want. As a bit of a hint, it's usually at the bottom, the info you want. So let's have a look. We can go back up, scroll up a little bit here and look for the constructor and calling the contract. Here it is here. There's default operator filter. Here it is. Dead kids, ERC 721, ownable, reentrancy guard, default operator. So the same stuff that I kind of have in there. You can see here their cost is going to be 0.002. Their max supply is 3333. Max min amount's 10. Max min amount per wallet is 10. And you can see they've got the information hard coded into their contract. that also generally means that they don't quite know what they're doing. They haven't put it into the constructor. And so if we look down into there, let's find their mint function. Okay, public mint, function public mint. If we have a look on here in write contract, it's still displayed the same, public mint function. They're looking for a payable amount in Ethereum and a mint amount, which is good. So we can be pretty sure that this is not going to be a drainer. Public mint function, it's external, it's payable, it's calling the user. This function here hasn't been used for months. So that's how I also know that it's a copy of an old contract. They've got their mint checks as well. So they've got all their checks into the same mint function. They're checking to see if someone's already minted. So when someone mints a free NFT, so it looks like they're doing a free NFT for the first one and 002 for any extras. So if we looked at that there, we could probably see that. But they're using Safe Mint, which is exactly the same as Mint, which I use, but it costs more in gas. The reason you would use Safe Mint is if you're having another contract mint from your contract, because Safe Mint will check with the other contract that the NFTs arrived before it says that the function has worked. I don't allow, so in the one I did, I wasn't allowing contracts to mint. So I can just use mint, and that'll save 50 cents to 80 cents on the mint cost. And one other thing we can see here that they don't really know what they're doing, and they've just copied this contract. See here, they've got Safe Mint. So they've basically used that thinking, well, if a contract mints, I want to make sure that the NFT gets there. But up here, which I noticed on the way through, they've got a modifier. A caller is user. Require the transaction origin to be the message sender, which means it has to come from a wallet, not from a contract. So basically all they're doing is costing you 80 cents in gas, because they've already said that the transaction can't come from another wallet. And yet down here, they're using Safe Mint, which is to protect a contract minting. And up the top, they're saying a contract can't mint. So, there's little things like that that just shows you that there may be, not some issues, not some scamming issues, but there may be some issues when they go to do their mint. It might have some problems, because if they're reusing a contract, it makes you wonder what DApp they're using or where they've got the code for that, and they haven't written it themselves. But this one is a flat file, right? So if you go to look at a contract, so going back, if we go to look at a contract, it's been verified, which is good, but it's all in one file. You're going to need to do some searching. The best way to probably do it is just go up the top here to the search box and type mint and keep clicking and look for the mint or the Safe Mint function. So there'll be a stack of mints, but this is really the only way to do it when it's a big flat file and you've got to look for it yourself. So eventually we got to Safe Mint on line 1000. Okay. So what we might do now is we might look for a free contract or a free mint to, does anyone know a free mint that's going now? It doesn't need to be a good one. It can be as shitty as possible. And we'll just do a mint on that. If you know one, just pop it into the chat box. And while we're waiting for that, I'll see if there's any more questions. I went through, there's a question here from Remco, looking for red flags. I've shown you on the contract basically what to look for. You want to look for that mint function. On the DApp, it's a little harder because the code's hidden, and unless you understand DevTools in Chrome and are able to open up the JavaScript files, it's really difficult to see what it is. But the thing to look for is what comes up on your MetaMask, right? So when you're trying to do a transaction, so I'll have when we do a mint, we'll have a look at the MetaMask transactions. But MetaMask will give you you want to look for contract interaction or mint to come up as the function that's being used. And then MetaMask will tell you if it's trying to access, like set an approval for all, or it's going to steal your NFTs or something like that. 99% of the times, people just don't read the response from MetaMask. So it's very difficult for it's very difficult for people to then say, oh, I got scammed. But if they just had a read that MetaMask is saying, if you click on this, it'll give them access to all your NFTs, but they still click on it anyway because they're FOMOing into a mint or something like that. Let me have a look on here and we'll see if we can find a contract that's open. I used to, when I'm bored sometimes, I'll go through this verified contracts and I'll look for projects that have uploaded contracts and they've mistakenly left their contract open and just go through and mint before they even release. You know how sometimes you get into a mint and they'll say, oh, scammers got to us and minted us before we're ready. No, scammers didn't do that. People just saw that you left your contract open when you lodged it and went and minted. It's got nothing to do with scammers. It's got to do with bad deving. So what you can do is you kind of can look through here the number of transactions. Okay, so that means there's transactions taking place. These Inus, these will be coins. They're not worth looking at. Again, Black Cat coins got transactions. Genesis, I'm not sure what that is. That'll looking at the solidity level 0.612. That'll be some kind of coin. Inu again. Treasure Island. Let's see what that is. That might be an NFT. Okay, so we can look straight away. It's token tracker, so it's a Treasure Island token. If we read the contract just quickly, we can have a quick look to see what's going on. So the first thing, look, this is liquidity swap. You can see straight away. So automated market maker pairs, liquidity fee. So that's not an NFT. That's a bummer. So that's someone setting up their own little Uniswap or something like that. Free Momo. This looks like a free NFT. Looks like a crap one, but let's have a look at it anyway. Okay, so the one thing we can see straight away, it's got ERC721A, which means it'll be an NFT. Max supply 555. It's probably sold out, I'd say. Let's have a look. So we go down to total supply, 555. It's already sold out. So we're not minting any free NFT there. There you go. If anyone knows of a free mint, I used to have a free mint checker, but I haven't got it running anymore.
I'll put one in the chat for you.
Oh, you did? Thank you. Giddy Gimples, thanks, Cam. So what I'm going to do is have a look at the Giddy Gimples. We're going to look at their contract. So cost after free is it's at 0. We can look again at the cost. Cost after free 0.003. So that's not too bad. We're going to look at total supply is 227 so far, and their max supply is 6,900. So we're doing okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mint one for free. Okay. So what you do is you go into the right contract section. Oh, actually, we should probably check the code first. Okay, ownable first. ERC 2981 is for royalties. Re-entrancy guard, as I said, it's so someone can't loop. There's 2981 again. Don't know why they got it twice. They've got a signature, so they've had a whitelist. So they're using EC DSA rather than Merkle. Here's our contract here. Well, I've seen this contract before. This is a cut and paste of another one. I'm going to look for the mint function. Removal. Transfers. Down further. Oh, here we go. Okay, so right here, the minting. Message sender is going to be the person that asks for the mint, so your wallet address and the amount. And if we're having a look here, and it looks good, you can have one free in your wallet. Okay, so let's see if we can go to write contract. And we're going to, if you want to, we look at the mint again. So we've got payable amount and the amount we want to mint. So what you do is see this Connect Web3 button. If you want to interact with the contract, you hit Connect Web3. And then you can connect your MetaMask. Oh, I probably need to log in, I guess. Hang on. Don't screen capture my keyboard. Okay, and so what we'll do, so our payable amount is 0 because we're going to mint 1. And it's free. The first one's free, and then we're going to do the amount. So what happens then? You just make sure these function or these strings are filled in. Then you press write. And you see up here, we've got, the function is mint, just here. You can put that on. Sometimes for a mint, it will say contract interaction. That's fine as well. $6.48 for a free mint. What a scam. What's gas? 28. There you go. So we're going to confirm. And what we can do then is we can view our transaction. And it was a success. And we minted 1 Giddy Gimple, and it's token ID number 228. If we look down a bit further here, it shows it came from my degen address, and we interacted with this contract. The token was transferred to me. Gas ended up costing $4.11, which is not bad for, yeah. And here's some more info you can see. So the gas limit and usage, it used 89,000 units of gas, which is pretty good. That's a good standard 721A contract. And then you can look at your input data here, and it will show you what the transaction was that you sent. We wanted 1, we sent amount of funds, and we wanted 1 NFT, and that's what it sent us. So we could go to OpenSea now and look at that, and that should be there. But what we might do is I'll do an example of how to transfer from the contract without having to go to X2Y2 or OpenSea to do transfer. So our token is number 228, right? So we're going to go back to the contract and we're going to do safe transfer. And we're going to transfer token 228, okay? Now the from address, I'll just, hang on, I'll get a couple of, is this address here, okay? So which is the gen address. As you can see, dgen. And so our from address, we type that in. And the reason there's a from address and it just doesn't take message sender is because we can give an allowance or an approval to someone else to transfer on our behalf. So if this was OpenSea sending it, OpenSea would put their contract address in there, and then it would have the to address, which is the address that you would write. So I'm going to just transfer this to another wallet. I'll transfer it to one of my dev wallets. We'll transfer it to this one, which has got no money in it. Wallet to, we just put the wallet back to the right address. See, I got all sorts of wallets, scam testing, dev testing. And what we would do now, so we've got the address that it's going from, which is the address that owns the NFT. So that's your address and the address we're sending it to. And we're going to hit write. And then we'll pay some gas. $5. And we just check up here first. So it's safe transfer. So this is the function that's being used. So when it's being, oh, that's pretty cute. So when it's being called from a dApp, you can't see what you're clicking on, right? So you can see the results up here of what they're trying to get you to do. So if you think you're minting and it comes up and says set approval for all, that's really bad. Minting, you want it to say mint or contract interaction. So we're just going to transfer this. And we can look at our transaction. And it's going through, nearly complete. Give it a reboot, it probably should be. I'll refresh. I know my gas is 32. And now that it's transferred, so we've transferred one of those NFTs from this wallet to this wallet. And we've interacted with the NFT contract. And it says here that we transferred the NFT. And it ended up costing us $3. $3.40. Okay. So that's how we transfer an NFT from the contract. Let me just check the chat, see if there's anything else we need to talk about. We spoke about Merkle root. I'll get back to Crypto SJ's question in a second. KT asked, how important is it for a project to have their contract audited? For a standard NFT contract, not really that important, providing that the developers know what they're doing. Basically, it's just a waste of $10,000 because that's what they want to charge you to do an audit. For something that comes along that starts to do some really interesting things like, multiple burns for different results and stuff, like say some of the Psychedelics Anonymous stuff where you burn 3 things to get an NFT claim, it's worth having those things audited if you're the project to make sure that you've covered all your reentrancy loops and things like that. But for a standard NFT contract, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of reasoning to be able to do it, providing that you know what you're doing. What else we got here? Corgi. We spoke a little bit about the contract being a drainer, but like I said, it's more the DApp that's going to be the drainer than the contract. Just quickly here from Yane, Bilzerian, if someone has multiple wallets under the same email address, so let's say 3, and they get hacked wallet drainer, does that affect all 3 wallets or just the one that's connected? That really comes down to what sort of hack it was. If you've lost your seed phrase, all your wallets are at risk that are that have been generated from that seed phrase. If you have clicked on something and they've done a set approval for all and they've stolen your Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's only that wallet. It's not your other wallets. So the set approval for all is only on that single wallet. And if they've stolen your private key, so there's a scam where they get you to do something called an ETH_sign. And what that does is it steals the private key of that wallet. So if you've got 10 wallets under the same seed phrase, you've only lost control of that single wallet. But if you lose your private key, they can take your Ethereum, they can take or any of your other coins that you might have, and they can also take your NFTs. If it's a set approval for all sort of drainer, they can only take the NFTs that have been approved. So there's 3 kinds of levels of that. We'll probably do some security stuff at another time. Baz is asking about applying software to trace drain scams. Yeah, there's plenty of software that does that. I can do a video on that one time and upload it. That would be fine. But quite honestly, if you read what MetaMask is saying, you will be covered 99.99% of the time. But absolutely, I'll do a video on that in the next week or 2. Is using tools like Pocket Universe enough? Ionis, I think that's how you say it. Pocket Universe is good. It helps. You should always, always, always use a burner when you're minting or a degen wallet. And if you mint something you like, transfer it off to your safe hot wallet or to your ledger. Ledger's probably the safest, but if your configuration's set up well enough and you have multiple profiles and wallets, you're being able to store your good NFTs on a hot wallet's perfectly okay. Let me see. We talked about minting from contract. Hope that was okay, Anna or Anne America. Thank you, Sushi. Appreciate that. I showed how to send NFTs on the contract. Husky, we've done that. Okay, so I've been going for an hour. So if anyone has any last questions, pop them in here, and I will. If there's no more questions, I'll leave it there, and I'll hand back over to Ali and to Corgi. But if you have any questions that didn't get answered or you need any more information, just ping me in Discord or feel free to send me a DM if you don't want to talk about it in the chat, in Corgi chat. but hopefully that gave you a bit of an understanding. Look, I know it was quick and it's sometimes hard to follow. The most important things to take out of it: look at the contract, make sure it's verified, check the mint function, read what MetaMask is telling you you're about to sign. They're the most important things you can take out of this. But like I said, drop me a note or a DM or a ping, and happy to explain or go through things some more. Okay, so I will hand back to Ali.
Thank you so much for that. That was so informative, and I learned a ton. And it was a good refresher on some stuff I thought I knew, but you explained it in a better way than I learned it. So I really got a lot out of that. Thank you so much for sharing your Saturday morning with us.
Not a
Great. So Corgel's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. For everybody that's listening, can y'all unmute yourself? Does that work? I don't know what the settings are. I don't know if you're able to, can anybody try unmuting and see if you can talk? Okay, so we got to change the settings, I think, so we can, because I got to, 1 second. We're going to try to figure out how to get that working. And then I'll go through some of the questions. Corgel's going to answer some, and I'm sure he knows a lot more than I do about these things, but I can definitely help. All right. I'm going to go to the questions now. Okay. So while we figure out how to make sure y'all can unmute yourselves, Corgel's coming, but the first question from Stiv was what tools we're using. I personally use Tiny Astro. That's only because that seems I had Alpha Sharks, but the Tiny Astro interface works well for me, and it was a really affordable tool when I got it. You can get access several ways. I think they have partnerships with a lot of projects, but I personally enjoy using Tiny Astro to monitor mints and collections. I know there's more in-depth tools, but for what I use, that's all I need. I'll see what Corgel has to say about that in a minute. I don't know what he uses. I think he might use Tiny Astro too. That's my favorite. And let me see. Can anybody unmute themselves yet? Anybody? All right, I'm gonna. Oh yeah, Corgel is blur only. That's probably pretty accurate, actually. But see, blur for me is tough because half the time I'm running around between my office, my home, and with my kids, and I'm on mobile. So that puts me in a bad. Oh, thank you, Momo, for saying unmute's working. That's good. That'll save us if we needed to troubleshoot this spaces a little more before we did it, and we ran out of time. So for time number 1, I think it's going pretty well. Yeah, Blur needs to hurry up and upgrade their mobile interface. Would make my life a lot easier and help me earn some more Blur tokens. I love using it on my computer, but sometimes I need to do something quickly and I'm on only my mobile.
Okay,
And
I think I'm on right now.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How's your evening?
I'm great, just came in. Just gonna open Discord and see the questions.
Yeah.
I have to just read them through. People cannot unmute yet, right?
They can unmute.
Oh, they can already.
They
I can go through.
Yeah, Momo
Sorry?
said they can unmute. Momo said they can unmute themselves, so I think they're good.
That's fine. I can go for the questions which we have already. I presume that so far was only Zoom speaking, right?
Yeah, I just answered from my perspective what tools I use, and I told them that I use Tiny Astro, but you probably have some more insight.
Yeah, I was just listening to them for the last 20 minutes. It just reminded me of like, if you watch that movie when they're trying to steal like the biggest diamond in the world, like Mona Lisa, and there's always this super smart guy who explain how to go through all the securities and so on. And you're listening to that and you're thinking, how the fuck you didn't think about it before?
I agree.
Okay, let me go through the questions. What tools are you using? I'm using only Blur, to be very honest. I had a tons of tools when it was a bull market. Now I just don't think volume is barely enough. Like literally, if you look in the top 10 collections, they're holding all the volume, and rest is just like dropping drastically. If you look on collection like top 25 or 30 volume, they barely have like 20 cells a day or 30 cells a day. So except some very hyped mints, which is not that often anymore. I didn't really use those, and since Blur have the charts as well, I'm using daily and seven days charts, and it's pretty clear for me. And we traded from beginning of December until now on the Blur only, all the charts and all my calls. I wasn't using anything else, so I don't think it's specifically needed. And when I need like a blue chip holders ratio or something like that, I'm just asking one of the guys who have like a tiny Astro Alpha Sharks, just to have an overview of the collection. There, I was just going I just did like 3 kilometers in the snow. I'm trying to lose some weight, so I thought I would be walking instead of taking taxi, and I don't think that was the best idea.
You got to get that Caribbean diet.
Yeah. Okay, what tools? What is the next questions? Guests AMA in the future? Well, we probably will. We're just picking a few projects already, so we might have actually some podcasts. I think there was some conversation with a steady stack Titans, if I'm correct. So possibly we're gonna organize something with them, but there's nothing confirmed yet. So I will be doing probably some spaces in the Twitter as well. And I think if we start doing now weekly voice calls, go through some questions, some projects, and outlook for the following week, I guess that might help everyone if people are interested in that. Okay, other questions? I see only Zoom. I had a question if Corgi has a specific trading strategy in place. That's about the crypto calls. I mean, about the crypto, to be very honest, I simplified everything what I was doing in a bear market. So in bull market, everyone looked like a genius because you could buy something and literally just wait a few days and it was in profit. So, technical analysis wasn't as important when everything was trending up. So that's the reason, so many scams came out, so many, influencers became famous because they were just posting, oh, it's going to go up, and it went up, and, everyone was excited. Now it's a little bit more complicated. And now I focus on a spot like 90%. So 90% of my trading capital is spot. And recently to the spot, for example, to sushi, if I open sushi on spot trade, I also open, for example, 3x leverage, like a small one, DCA at the lows. And I'm just taking profits as it goes. Only on the leverage one, I'm taking profits more often because it's obviously slightly higher risk. And pretty straightforward. Once I hit the take profit one, I'm moving stops to break even. Once it hits take profit 2, I'm moving stops to TP1 and so on. So even if it retraces, I'm always in profit. I'm never giving money back to the market. And, if it retraces back to my, take profit point, I might look for the re-entry like we did recently, like with sushi or pair, we had like 2 or 3 different re-entries. And 10% of trading capital I'm looking for leverage trading. I think most of the issues I see on the chart with the crypto is that people trying to just make it quick, or they're just trying to chase the call, or if they miss something, they're like, oh, I missed that entry, what I should do next, and so on. But I think if someone is starting or didn't trade successfully before, I will generally recommend just to focus on spot only. And if you're profitable on the spot after, let's say, 1 month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and you can do that consistently, then you can introduce the leverage, because leverage is just like, it's just making people very greedy. And I think that was my problem when I started, that, everything was going so well, and you buy, something on 20x leverage on, $200 or $300, and you can cash out 600 or 700 2 or 3 days later, or even same day. But unfortunately now, as you saw, for example, from last week, for 7 days straight, we are ranging within like $800 on Bitcoin. Now it break up. So it went obviously way higher, but it was catching people on stop loss on the longs and stop loss on the shorts, and it was pretty complicated to trade. So in that situation, usually the best thing is just to buy some spot and hold on. And yeah, that's pretty much our answer. So, and if you play scalps, I will use 2 or 3% of your leverage account, very small. So if, let's say, your trading account is I don't know, $1,000, might as well play with like $50 or $40, for example. And if that works, then you can increase it. But I wouldn't increase the size until I increase the until I'm confident that I can be profitable on multiple trades in a row. And I think also leverage, it really doesn't matter. It's about the size. Because if you put the $10,000 trade on a 3x leverage, it's way better trade, way more safe, and it's not gonna catch your stop losses as easily if you put, let's say, $500 on 100x leverage. So I would rather prefer to play with a larger size and small leverage. And sometimes pocket money, I do a little gamble on like 30, 40, 50x, but that's very small size for an overall account. I hope that answers your question. I think that was Kitsune. Money management in NFTs, Yardak, how to allocate budget and how to stay liquid. I think my goal in bear market is to be 50% in stable coins all the time. So if I, for example, look in December, I think including the NFTs I was holding and Ethereum, Bitcoin spot and other trades, I was about 65% in a market. So I only had like 35% in stable coins, but I was taking profits. My goal when I'm taking profits is to keep getting back to at least that 50% stable coins. So if there's any retrace, any great trade coming up, I can always use that money. And with NFTs, what we did in the summer is, as Ethereum went up, you cashing out your profits from NFTs to Ethereum and from Ethereum to stable coins. And that money, you just cash out. You're not using that again, because I don't want to put my profits back to my trading. So let's say a lot of people start with, let's say, 1 ETH and get into like 3 Ethereum, and then they trading with that 3 Ethereum. And obviously then you're getting a little bit more confident, maybe did some copy trades and so on. And then it's very easy to get back from the 3 Ethereum back to 1 Ethereum. I did it multiple times. I had some incredible streaks. And then I gave it all back to the market. So once I take out the profit, I'm not putting that back into trading. So I started doing that since really December last year, and since January, it happens only in December. Since January 2022 last year, I did not buy a single crypto from with my fiat money. I was only using all the time money I already had in account, and I was just flipping and flipping, cashing out and flipping. So that's the goal, to not use that your fiat money ideally, and just keep cashing out into stables. Because we don't know. I mean, we might, and at this moment, we might go to 25K in next 2 weeks. We might go even to 30K, but it's still bear market. We're still in a horrible economic situation. And it can be situation, we saw that in the summer that we went to 25K on Bitcoin and 2K on Ethereum. And it took us, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 weeks. And then it took us, I think, 5 days to get back to lose all of that profit. And how many people were left out, on the sidelines holding that NFTs, holding that Ethereum from 2K back to like 1300 or 1400. And I just don't want to be in that situation. That's the reason I'm repeating about taking profit so many times, because I think it's so unpredictable that, Fed can come in February and say, fuck 25 bips, we're going to do 50 bips, and market will panic and we can look 3 or 4K. I don't think that will happen, but I prefer to be safe than sorry, if that makes sense. And just to finish that question, free for Ethereum would be optimal to hold liquid to play majority of your calls. Yeah, I think it would be, but depends on your budget, to be very honest. So it could be, it varies from a person. And sorry, I think my dog was trying to get in from balcony. Come in, Lena. So if that's something what you can sleep peacefully, you can have the tokens in your wallet and you don't stress about it, that's the good amount. If you bought something and you have to keep looking on the floor, keep stressing out, keep being nervous, that's probably too much. So usually that's how I'll approach it. I don't know if that's answer your question, but we can get back to that. Bus. First question was to Zoom. Second, I am bot seller. What signals do you look for other than the listing versus sales? On the Blur, you have a very cool, also on any other tools, you have the depth channel. So you can see where if you look on it's gonna
So Zoom forgot to answer a question, and when we're finished with Corgal, he's going to pop back in and answer that question. So if you're the person who was waiting for an answer, stick around because he'll be back in just a little bit for the last question.
I can jump in now if you like while we're waiting for Corgal to hook
That's
back up.
probably a great idea.
Yeah, so it was about whether Python, becoming a dev, I guess, or learning Solidity. I don't know how to say your name. Sorry, Crypto SJ something or other. Python's a good place to start if you want to learn Solidity, but I guess the best language to understand is JavaScript or Node.js is what I use. And if you can get proficient at it, Solidity is not hard to understand. It's not a hard language. What is difficult, the most difficult thing about it is learning how to control how much gas is used in a transaction. And by doing that, and how we do that is we take transactions off chain and allow them to do stuff off chain rather than on chain, right? So if you remember back, say, a year and a half ago, before Merkle was really popular, it had cost $150 to do a whitelist mint because people would just chuck all the addresses into the contract, and it would have to search through all those addresses every time someone minted, and so it would cost a ton of gas. So, but like I said, if you can learn Python and Node.js, that's a great start. And then just start working through Solidity. I'll flick a good code camp address into the chat. It's done by a guy named Patrick Collins. It's really, really good and teaches you a lot. But if you've got a solid background, it's okay. And the second part of the question is, can you do a bit of a side hustle? Well, yeah, you can. You just need to get some contacts and get things and prove that you can do it, I guess. There's so many people that are doing contracts that don't really know what they're doing, and they cause problems, and the mints don't work, and whatever. That, unfortunately, most of the contract stuff is done by a bunch of people get together, and one goes, "Oh yeah, let's do a project," and they say, "Yeah, what are we going to do?" And then who's going to do the contract? And someone says, "Oh, look it up on YouTube, and I'll be able to do it." And so that's what happens. It's more if projects are more professionally run, they will hire a dev to do it if they don't have one in their core team. And so that's, as a side hustle, yes, you can, but you need to get some runs on the board and get some contacts so people will come to you and get you to do it. Hope that explains it.
Let's go. Let's go.
Can you hear me now? Let me check if people can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Let me get back to that basket. I don't know why I got disconnected. I was just moving my pad to the other room, and I think I got disconnected from headphones. So we're talking about the depth chart. So obviously everyone knows what the cell walls, and I think the depth chart is depth. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. It's very easy because instead of listing your Ethereum, your NFT at like 1 Ethereum, you're gonna list it on like 0.94 and 0.95, for example. 0.93 doesn't really matter, because if NFTs are pushing up, they're usually pushing to that wall, and you see a lot of the cells like piling up around like 101, 102, and then there's a very quick retrace. Like you saw yesterday, for example, Sewer Pass went from 140 to like 2.2 within half an hour, but then retraced very quickly to 180. So obviously you can re-enter back at like 180, 170 and, run it back up. I don't know what's the floor right now, but a lot of people bought at, 2.1, 2.15 and so on at the very top instead of just being patient. That's the reason so many times I'm saying that when there's like a hyped mint, most of the time it's better to wait for at least 60, 70% to be mint out, because then you have more like a net value of the NFT, how much people value that, rather than rushing, into hype and from at very beginning. And getting back to the when to sell, I don't look on we're not playing free mints. When we trade in the summer, some of you guys been here already with me now, July, August, and we did a bunch of these free mints and just like 0.01 ETH or 0.02. And then you were looking for quick 1.5, 5x, 2x, and gas was super cheap because nobody was fucking trading. Yeah, sure, that was a great idea. Now I'm just taking profits under all of these little sell walls. And let's say I buy 5 NFTs. Most of the time I'm just listing them straight away, and I'm just monitoring that sell walls, and I'm adjusting to the situation. So sometimes I just cancel listing, putting that a little bit higher, but most of the time I just maybe decrease by a little if a sell wall is just going down. But most of the time I'm just setting that up, the trade at very beginning. I buy 5, I'll list them all up. I usually list at least 40-50% around my TP1, TP2, and then I'll have a last one or two at the TP3 or higher, because most of the time these trades, like I'm very happy with the profit if it takes, TP1 or TP2. And maybe I missed some moves. I mean, some of you guys may remember I exit like SAPI sales at I think 1.2 or something like that, and they run all the way up to 2 Ethereum. Sure, but I bought them at like 0.60 and bought like 6 or 7 of them. So I think that was pretty good profit anyway. And I think more times I was fucked over by being greedy than taking profits early. And that's applied to pretty much everything we do, the crypto, NFTs, and so on. That so many times you think that will just push a little bit higher. I'm just waiting for this one news, game changer for me, and it never comes, and you're tracing back to entry or even lower. So previously, this mistake still happened to me and to everyone else, but as long as you're taking profits aggressively on, let's say 80% of your trades, you're always going to be in profit. So even if you have some holding some losing trades, you're not stressing out all that much. If that makes sense. And last question about the Pixelmon floor doesn't move. Oh, as long as it's still within the entry, there's no need to update. If there's something important, happening, I will post about it. But like we held caps for good probably 10, 14 days, and they pumped back up. We took some profits, and they retrace back to the entry, but also Ethereum pumped up. So realistically, even if someone entered at very bottom of our entry, and the price of floor price get back to our entry, but Ethereum value is 30% higher, you're still in the profit. That's the reason there's no point of panic. Plus, obviously, there's some other factors that I think that will provide them better upside within the next, let's say, 10 to 14 days to sell them for the higher price. So call is valid until I update about it, or if you're stressed about it or you're not sure, you can always ask and ping me in a chat. But that's what we did in December, that so many of those calls we bought very early. Some of you guys, remember, if you scroll through the chats when we bought the beans at like 0.8 or SAPI sales like 0.6 or something like that. And we just waited. There was nothing happening at the very beginning. Like they went up a little, retrace, they were hovering around the entry. And then once, things piled up, some hype and FOMO, then took off. So some of you guys held, those NFTs for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they did, big 2x, 2.5x. So it's just about patience. And if I see that, I'm checking them every day because I have them on a watch list. If I see that, floor is going down, I see listing increasing or something, I'll update like warning, maybe look for some bids to accept exit for small profit and a small loss or something like that. But so far, it wasn't happening all that often. Okay, what else we have? Are there any plans to have live trading session on YouTube or Twitch for the community? I'm not really live trading. I'm not daily trading. If you saw, I'm not doing all that much of the futures. I'm doing mostly spot. We can do some, live trading maybe for the NFTs. I would rather go for let's say we have like AMA like now on Friday or Saturday, and we go through the market, what we see, what kind of projects we should look out for the next week and so on, rather than live trade buying NFTs. Because with a low volume right now, let's say there's 250 of us on the server, and we all see that there's a very thin floor on Pixelmon. And if 10 of us buy something right now, we can move the floor from 0.35 to 0.45. So that's not really helpful because one of you guys gonna buy at 0.45, and that's above our entry. That makes sense. So that's the reason I'm giving the ranges always, and I'm telling you to snipe or look for offers, because I don't want to usually enter at that particular moment, but look for some retraces, look for some people who want to paper hand them for way lower, and then run it back up. What else? Minting straight from contract. Zoom. So nothing for me. I think Smith, you have one more question. You're a full-time trader now. What did you do before, and what made you take a leap fade into the full-time trading? Well, in a shortcut, in the last 7, 8 years, I did sales mostly. I started face-to-face and event sales in Poland, like insurance sales, charity, energy, broadband, and so on. I did it for about 6 months in Poland. Then I had opportunity to move with a team. I was invited to move to London. They paid us for like flight travel accommodation for like 10 weeks. And I'm from the team of 10. They want to keep like 3 of us to work in a London office. So I did that, stayed at 10 weeks. I got selected with the 3 people. Stayed in London for about a year and a half. Got to management position, opened London office in London, then in Maidstone, in like 1 hour, 45 minutes straight from London. And then in North London, in Watford. So I was running a couple of sales offices for about 6 years. And then when COVID hit, we started doing the call center. I didn't really like it in particular. So after a few months, I moved with my partner. We left the UK, we moved to Poland, and we started doing recruitment remotely. So we were working for offices in UK and in America, and we're doing video and phone interviews for various sales companies. And then, to be really honest, I was working crazy hours, just decent money, but I didn't want to get back into this grind I did with the sales for good 7 years. So I started looking for alternatives last summer and came across, some articles about crypto. Obviously heard about it, but didn't really dive into. Started watching a lot of YouTube videos and got kind of addicted to that. I was watching hours every single day, trying to understand how everything works, why people think that, it's NFTs are, great technology. I could join some Discords where people were chatting about what they're buying, why they're buying, and started learning we started learning from each other, I would say, sharing experience. We got into some stupid projects, into some great projects, and went through all different metas of photography NFTs at the very beginning, to some projects which we invested a lot and they racked us a few days later, and learn how to trade on futures. I was mostly learning from people on the Twitter and YouTube, taking notes, kind of like self-teaching with the help myself on daily, writing the trades, seeing my if they go in in profit, what I'm doing right or wrong, writing the notes, and spend months of doing that. And I was still working in recruitment, and I did it from pretty much end of June up to December, with fairly good success, I would say. And then I got first job in Web3. I got work as a moderator in Das 3D project, and then a couple others like 2 months later. So I was moderating on like 3 servers, plus trading NFTs, and started making pretty good money from all of that. And it was way more money that I could make in a recruitment. So from January, I'll move full time into Web3. I had money from the trading, from everything else I did aside, and got all in. I just betted on myself. Obviously, market hit hard later on. Luckily, I was taking profits along the way, and then I thought that maybe that would be a good idea to start sharing that. So some people helped me at the very beginning. So then I started sharing some trades, and people were asking questions on the chats. And then I thought about, what if I just open Discord and have it all in one place? And that's how Corgi Calls were born, pretty much. In a shortcut, I would say. Yeah. Don't see any other questions. There's a Zoom, YouTube video. I think that's all. How do you come up with tips for NFT calls? I was just saying, Shay, it's on a depth chart on the Blur. If you look on the Blur depth chart, you can see the steep walls. They're like cell walls, And I'm just looking on the scrolling through the listing, seeing where is the biggest increase decrease, and I'm just taking setting TPs couple percent below that sell walls, because usually when there's some sort of announcements, news, and so on, they're pushing towards the sell wall, and if it's strong enough, it's going to push to the next one. So we're taking some profits just before in case it's rejecting, so we're not losing that opportunity. And then again, under the next sell wall, they usually like the people have, as I was saying before, there's very even numbers like 150, 125 to Ethereum and so on. That's very often around those numbers are the building sell walls, because for some reason they think it's a good idea. So I want to always list a little bit below that, because that's giving you way higher chances to take a profit. So often I just have NFTs listed, and after some big move, I just wake up to ETH but no NFTs, because they just sold out. So I just make it a habit that I'm buying, and I'm just listing usually straight away. That's making consistent profit that way. I think that's all.
Does anybody want to talk? We can open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, unmute yourself, or has anything you want to share or say. We're happy to open up the stage for anybody.
So I think I got lost. Anyone else have some questions? Are we good to go?
I don't know. Seems like everybody's quiet.
Quiet. Okay. I mean, as it goes, I hope there's going to be always some more questions, but hopefully that was helpful, and everyone learned something from Zoom. There was tons of information as well. Is there anything else we want to cover, Ali, or we're good to go?
It's been great. I'm looking forward to doing some more of these with the community, different subjects.
Okay.
It's a great way to come together and improve a little bit, I think.
Cool. One more person typing. Thanks for presentation. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy your Friday, and we're gonna see you on the chat.
Everybody have a nice weekend.
Have a nice weekend, guys. Speak to you soon.